Steakhouse up in Summit County. After a day of skiing, it is the perfect way to wrap up that perfect day at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. And then, of course, right in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City, we have a Ruth's Chris Steakhouse here as well, right in the middle of all the action. So whether it's a play, a ball game, whatever it might be, that delicious dinner, it's waiting for you at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Plus, it's only fair to remind you that Valentine's Day now is just around the corner, and your sweetheart is going to love that amazing meal. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, 275 Southwest Temple, and also Hotel Park City. The meal you're waiting for, it's waiting for you at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
It's time for the Sportsman's Vacation and RV Show, February 16th through the 19th at the Mountain America Expo. Save $2 at UtahRVShow.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We are back to a crash-free commute on all of the Valley freeways. Also seeing good speeds, looking good on the main secondaries as well. Call 8660-RES and say you want the KSL special. $33 per room cleaned and $50 off air duct cleaning. Zero res. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather clouds building up over northern Utah today with a small storm expected Thursday morning. Right now, 46 degrees, partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Very early this morning, the United States Senate passed a significant piece of legislation to provide funding and aid for several countries, several allies, including some military and economic aid for Ukraine, for Israel, humanitarian aid for civilians in Gaza, as well as some things for those dealing with China in the Pacific. All of those are in the legislation. So the headline is the Senate has passed the bill. It goes across the building to the House. And the question will be what comes next and why. There's been a lot of debate. There's been a lot of chatter. A lot of angry voices on both sides of this particular issue, and so we're going to get underneath the headline. We're going to cause you to question what you think you know about this aid package going to the House. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
All right, so we're going to unpack this just a little bit so that you know what is going on, what's real, what's not, and what comes next, because that's what we do. And so we're going to start with just a little bit of the reality check. Again, the Senate passed a bill this morning that provided about $94 billion in aid, $61 billion of that going to Ukraine, the rest being split up between Israel, some humanitarian aid for Gaza, and then for those dealing with China in the Pacific, making sure that Hong Kong and Taiwan have a little bit of bolstering there as well. So that bill now goes to the House, where the House Speaker has said it is dead on arrival. But I want to get into the process of all of this for just a second. And it's interesting to me. There's sort of been the pros and cons of this. And so, again, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, there's a lot for all of us to think about. You get to decide. My job is to create space for you to think and think again. So, first, there's been a lot of criticism of those who voted against the bill. So let's go through that part of the equation. I thought it was very interesting that you actually had the majority of Republicans voted against the bill, including some of the leadership, including Senator Barrasso, Senator Daines, who are part of the Republican leadership team. So they were in the majority of the Republicans voting no for this particular bill. So the minority of Republicans voted yes, along with the Democrats, with the exception of 3 Democrats who voted no, voted with their Republican colleagues. Now, that may just sound like some gobbledygook in terms of what happens in the sausage making in the Senate. But I think it's important because the reasons why there were yes votes and the reasons why there were no votes is important. The process matters. In fact, we're going to come back to the whole process and what the process might look like in the House coming up at 1:20. James Wallner is going to join us from Washington, D.C., Ultimate Insider, who will navigate us through what could come next and how this still actually could be signed into law by the president, but we'll play that out coming up at 1:20. So as you look at those and the reasoning, for those who voted no against the package, there were a number of reasons. Some, again, wanted border security to have that conversation first. There were some who voted no, the Democrats who voted no because they didn't want the aid for Israel to be in the bill. And so both those Democrats and the Republicans that voted no, they were also upset that there was no amendment process, that there was no chance for any other senator other than the senators who were in the room where it happened, crafting the deal, got to weigh in, got to offer amendments, got to ask questions. And so that was part of the rub and the resistance of, hey, we need to have regular order. We need to have things done so we can do it in front of the American people. We can offer amendments. Those can be voted up or down, and then you can take your final vote. So that's a big part of what happened there in the Senate side today. But again, it did pass in the end with bipartisan support. Again, there were about 17 Republicans who voted with the Democrats to get that across the finish line. And so now it goes over to the House. Now, just within the last hour, President Biden held a press conference. Did not take questions, but he made specific comments regarding the Senate bill. He urged the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, to immediately bring up the bill to the floor of the House and take a vote.
I urge Speaker Johnson to bring it to the floor immediately. There's no question that if the Senate bill was put on the floor in the House of Representatives, it would pass. And the Speaker knows that. So I call on the Speaker to let the full House speak its mind and not allow a minority of most extreme voices in the House to block this bill even from being voted on.
And so interesting thing there from the president saying, hey, bring it to the floor. He didn't say let there be an amendment process. He just wanted an up or down vote. And I think that's where we often get caught. So let's kind of break that down for a second. Why do we want there to be an amendment process? Well, let's start with kind of three big chunks of the bill. Israel, Ukraine, Gaza. There are some who would say, I don't want the funding to go to Israel. And so we should debate that. Or maybe we could offer an amendment to restrict that or control that. Are we just giving Israel a blank check on this particular one? And those who hold that view should have an opportunity to do that. On the Ukraine side, you have some who are, of course, saying we shouldn't be involved there at all. That's one position. They should have a chance to make their case, offer amendments. There are those who are saying, yes, we need to support Ukraine. We need to get on this quickly. And we should also put in some control mechanisms so that we're not just writing a blank check or so that there is some accountability. There are others that are saying, well, let's only give Ukraine hard assets, bombs, guns, rockets, tanks, helicopters, javelins. Let's just do that and let Europe handle the economic aid going into Ukraine. They're a little closer to the situation. They might be better suited for that. I think those are all reasonable, rational things that should be debated on the floor of the House and the Senate. And members of both parties on all the spectrums in terms of those particular issues should be able to offer amendments. That's how it's supposed to work. And that's been the real problem, is that we haven't had a process. And so then it makes it much harder because then everything feels like it's just this all or nothing, and that is a false choice. And so one of the things that we need to learn through all of this, I agree with those who say this is a time that we need to stand for freedom. This is a time where we have to stand up and do that. How we do that, I think, really matters and is really important. And so we're going to continue to track all of this. Again, regardless of where you fall on this, getting back to regular order, I think, is the beginning of better days in the House and the Senate, and the beginning of better policy for the American people. I think there are important messages that we're sending around the world, and they're not just about whether or not we stand up with our allies and stand against our enemies. It's about how do we stand for ourselves, and how do we make sure that freedom continues to stand right here at home. We'll be back. We're going to continue the conversation and look at the path forward in the House. Some of the options might make your head spin just a little bit. We'll be back with James Wallner coming up next.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. The nationally ranked Cougars are on a roll.
Foose dives low, wait, up, and good! Drops it over the 10 for 2.
Tonight, it's BYU, UCF.
Khalifa down the lane, still gets there, and lays it up and in! He was coast to coast like buttered toast.
Pregame is at 6 and tip-off at 7. Listen tonight. BYU, UCF on Utah's legacy home of Big 12 basketball and the BYU Cougars. KSL News Radio.
IVC is celebrating 20 years providing quality service in Utah. You've probably heard their saying by now. Life starts when the pain stops. IVC is the most trusted interventional and vein center in the state. And they've been voted Best of Utah Valley 10 years running. The 7 physicians at IVC provide state-of-the-art, comprehensive vein care with many years of experience. The team at IVC takes the time to get to know you and your veins so you're comfortable with the right diagnosis and the right treatment. Patients are like family at IVC. You've also heard many radio ads over the years with real people describing how IVC has dramatically improved their quality of life by eliminating the pain and discomfort caused by varicose veins. Well, what are you waiting for? Don't let vein disease slow you down even one more day, because life starts when the pain stops. Visit ivein.com today to set up a free screening. That's ivein.com.
Maybe it's because they're excited about Leap Day at the end of February. This is Jeff Kaplan. At Advanced Window Products, Leap Day means they get an extra day to build windows. But for you, it's an incredible opportunity. This month, they'll give you $2,500 off on 10 windows or more. $2,500 off on the highest quality custom window frames and double pane glass. They'll lower your energy bill and give your home an exciting new look. Any style, any color. At Advanced Window Products, you save money because they cut out the middleman. They build your windows right here in Salt Lake City. They install the windows and they guarantee them for life. So beat the rush. Once it gets warmer, their schedule backs up and you have to wait months and months for installation. So make the call and get to the head of the line. Save $2,500 and get custom precision windows built right here in Salt Lake City. Advanced Window Products offers 60 months, 0% financing. You can buy now, pay later, but call now. 801-850-9100. 801-850-9100 or visit advancedwindowsusa.com.
New home for the new year? Sounds nice, doesn't it? What about new lowered rates? Now's the time to step into a gorgeous new Nilsson home with less commute times, easy access, and with rates that have dropped more significantly than all year. Less really is more in this case. Less maintenance, less commute, and less money per month. Move north with Nilsson Homes. Choose from beautiful townhomes to Rambler communities for all stages of life. Most of all, Nilsson Homes are move-in ready and close to what you love and enjoy with easy commutes. Nilsson Homes has been building across the Wasatch Front for over 45 years, accommodating all the things you need, combined with the things you love. Make sure to ask about special savings. Experience your new home for the new year. Visit Nilsson Homes Communities at nilssonhomes.com. Nilson homes.com. That's nilssonhomes.com.
Give the star in your life the brightest gift in the world. Name a star after them. This is Rocky Moselle with International Star Registry. For $59 and a call to 800-282-3333 or visit starregistry.com, you can name a star for birthdays, weddings, or even memorials. Over 45 years, we have named millions of stars for celebrities and individuals from around the world. The star you name will be recorded in book form in the U.S. Copyright Office. Visit starregistry.com or call 800-282-3333. Give the star in your life the brightest gift in the world. Name a star after them. This is Rocky Moselle with International Star Registry. For $59 and a call to 800-282-3333 or visit starregistry.com, you can name a star for birthdays, weddings, or even memorials. Over 45 years, we have named millions of stars for celebrities and individuals from around the world. The star you name will be recorded in book form in the U.S. Copyright Office. Visit starregistry.com or call 800-282-3333.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, a Utah Highway Patrol trooper was injured this morning when he fell off a freeway bridge The trooper was assisting Salt Lake City police with a pursuit. Second cougar, the real furry kind, was spotted in a tree at Utah State University this morning. Third, flight attendants are on strike at airports across the country. Right now, 46 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Great to be with you today, as always. And we're staying with the conversation just a little bit longer. Of course, the Senate passed a version of this aid package, Ukraine, Israel, some humanitarian relief in Gaza, Taiwan. And now, of course, it goes over to the House, where the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has said it is dead on arrival. But as we know, just declaring something dead in Washington, D.C. does not necessarily mean it's absolutely dead. Resurrection is always possible, either based on political pressure and influence or some crazy rules within the House and the Senate. And whenever we get stuck in that position, we always turn to our friend James Wallner, Senior Fellow at the R Street Institute. And James, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So now that we've got this bill across the building from the Senate, and we've talked about the reasons why some voted against it, including some Democrats, because they wanted an amendment process because they didn't like the Israel portion. You had some Republicans, the majority of Republicans, who didn't want it to vote yes because there was no amendment process. But all that aside, it did pass. Now it moves across. And so navigate us through that in terms of what might play out, including an interesting use of the rules that might actually get this to a vote on the floor.
Well, the Senate passed this bill early this morning, right? I flew to D.C. today, and by the time I landed, this bill had passed. It was a bit odd. I forgot that the Senate was voting that early in the morning.
That's a rarity.
Conservatives, conservatives in the Senate pushed, and they said, no, we want to push this out as long as we can because we want to debate it. We want to debate our ability to offer amendments. We want to debate how this bill has been managed, and maybe some want to debate on the merits. And they're not alone on that. They're Democrats, as you said. I think Senator Sanders is one, Senator Merkley is another, who voted against the bill in the end. But it has cleared the Senate, and now it's heading to the House because we have two Congresses in this great nation of ours, not one. And so now the House has to figure out what to do. And it's not clear that path forward. And I think Speaker Johnson there's maybe like three options. Let's just stick with three. Maybe we can add to it as we go. But there's different ways that he can consider that bill once it gets there, right? He can ignore it. He can divide it. He can divide it up and have individual votes on the different pieces of it. Or he can work with Democrats or give Democrats permission, kind of like by looking the other way, to file what we call a discharge petition to eject that bill from a committee and put it onto the House floor over the objections of that committee's leadership and over the objections of the Republican leadership.
All right, let's dig into a couple of those. I think the first may be the most likely, in that he just ignores it, which is often this is sort of a reversal of fortune. Normally, the House passes things and they get ignored when the Senate gets them. Then you got the option of just putting it on the floor, or as you said, dividing it up, doing that in pieces, maybe voting on the Israel portion, voting on the Ukraine portion. And then if they did that, they would have to then send it back to the Senate to deal with at that point. Is that right?
That's correct. Only if one of those portions didn't pass, right? It would be a little ironic if the House had more opportunity to debate the individual pieces of this bill on the merits than the United States Senate, which once dubbed itself as the world's greatest deliberative body. But yes, if they divide the question once they're on the bill and they choose to pass, say, the Israel funding and the Ukraine funding, but not Taiwan, then that bill would have to go back to the Senate for them to approve it again. But if they pass all of them individually with different coalitions of voters, then it would be okay and it would go on to the president.
Okay, now I want to get onto this unique path, which is this item you mentioned called the discharge petition. For our listeners who didn't wake up thinking about a discharge petition as an option this morning, describe what that is and how that would work.
So the discharge petition in its modern form really dates back to the progressive revolution in the House, when progressive Republicans partnered with conservative Democrats and other Democrats and basically wrest control of the floor from the Speaker back way, way, way long ago. But in essence, in the House, if you want to get on the floor, if you're a bill and you want to make it to the floor, you for all intents and purposes, have to get a committee to first approve you because that's the way the House rules work. Unlike the Senate, it's harder to get to the floor in the House. But they have this rule, the discharge rule, which allows for a majority of lawmakers to sign a petition to, in essence, say, we want to approve, we want to have a chance to debate this bill, and we're not going to let one committee say we can't.
All right. And so my understanding is that there is a discharge petition that is sort of left over from the debt limit debacle from last year that has something like 210 or 213 signatures on it. Again, as you mentioned, you have to get to 218. You have to have a majority to do that. If this were deployed, describe the impact of that. What's likely to happen? Again, a lot of those are Democrats on there. Would some of them peel off because of the Israel portion of this particular bill? Is there a way to navigate that?
Legislative politics is never as simple and straightforward as we think, right? So obviously there are going to be some concerns on the left over the Israel funding piece in this package, and they may not want to sign a discharge petition. And you can rest assured that there are going to be groups on the outside that are going to pressure them not to. Couple that with the fact that on the right, you're going to have some Republicans support this petition. And that's also one reason why Johnson can't just ignore the bill, most likely, because if he just ignores it, it could drive members, especially Republicans, to support this effort. But there is an argument in the House, and this is something that people in the House understand well, and for those of us in the Senate or that aren't in either chamber, look at it and have a little harder time appreciating, the team play aspect in the House is really intense. And so even though you may be inclined to say we ought to support the Ukraine bill or this funding bill, to go one step further and to sign your name as a Republican to a discharge petition to basically roll your leadership, roll your party in the control of the House, that's a whole different thing. It may happen. It doesn't happen, right? I mean, This is something that doesn't happen. And my guess is that if it were about to happen, if Johnson didn't want it to happen, then he would come up with another way to consider the bill on the floor and save face by dividing it or something like that. So I think it is an uphill battle. And even if they do get the signatures, there's only certain days of the week that the calendar works that you can consider these bills. So the Speaker has a lot of power to still delay the issue, push it off, and make it harder for them to get this bill on the floor, even if they do get the signatures.
Fascinating stuff. So what should we be watching for over the next 24 to 48 hours?
Right now, I think it's just seeing what Speaker Johnson says, and if he gives any indication of how he will consider this bill. And then also, within the Republican Party, there is a significant portion of the party, just like there are a significant number of Americans who do not want to give funding, in particular to Ukraine right now. They have very significant questions in their mind. And so I think watching those members, watching those groups, and seeing how aggressively they push back against anything Johnson says, and I think those two things in combination will give you a lot of indication about what we can expect moving forward.
Yeah, always interesting, never ending, always spinning in terms of what happens when it comes to the procedural process there as well. James Wallner, Senior Fellow at the R Street Institute. James, always appreciate your perspective. This is going to be interesting to see how the Speaker navigates it, how the Republicans navigate it, how the Democrats navigate it, and if anybody's actually going to focus on the contents of these bills and see what they actually do in terms of national security and what it means to our allies and to our enemies all around the world. James, as always, thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, great perspective there from James Wallner. And I know that gets a little nitty-gritty and a little bit in the weeds when it comes to the process, but there are some really interesting ways that the bill could be brought up. And so as James pointed out, that over the next 24 to 48 hours, obviously watch what is happening, what the comments are coming from Speaker Mike Johnson. If he's indicating he's inclined to bring it to the floor, if he's just going to try to ignore it, if this discharge petition, which would require some Republicans to side with the Democrats to say, nope, we're going to bring this thing to the floor because I want to have a debate and a vote on it. That will be very interesting to watch. The most important thing to me, though, is to make sure we're, again, getting past just the political clamor and chatter of it all and actually get to the issues. I think there are reasonable, rational debates to be had about how we fund Ukraine and what we fund going to Ukraine. Economic aid versus pure military hardware kind of aid. I think there are legitimate questions in terms of what aid goes to Israel and in what form and what's the accountability process there. And those are all good things. We should be asking those questions. We should be having those debates, and I hope that our members of Congress will actually lean in and have them. We need them. All right, we'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomis. KSL's top story this hour. A Utah Highway Patrol trooper was seriously injured this morning when he fell off a freeway overpass at 7200 West and I-80. The trooper had been assisting other police agencies in a pursuit. The driver they were chasing was arrested later at a hotel west of the airport. Utah State University had an exciting morning when a mountain lion was spotted lounging in a tree on campus. It was chased off soon after the sighting. Logan Police Chief Jeff Simmons says they're still looking for the cat.
Officers in DWR are in the area hoping that they can obviously, see the animal or perhaps push it up into the mountain areas, the foothills there near campus.
Responding officer says it was a big cat, 4 to 9 feet. If it does find its way back to school, the department says they'll issue another warning. Our top national story this hour. President Biden urging the House to take up a bill to provide additional aid to Ukraine and Israel. He also took aim at former President Trump's remark, saying if he's reelected, he won't protect NATO members who aren't spending enough on defense.
Can you imagine a former president of the United States saying that? The whole world heard it. The worst thing is he means it.
The Senate has already passed that bill. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average having a steep down day, down 708 points, about 1.8% right now. The NASDAQ down 366 points, or about 2.3%. And our KSL weather looks cloudy, maybe not much rain anyway. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Bish's is skipping this year's big RV show for a big reason. It costs each dealer a fortune, and guess who gets stuck with the bill? Yep, you. So skip the big show expense and come to the Bish's Better Than Show pricing event for free admission, free parking, and better than show pricing on new and used RVs. Only at Bish's RV in Salt Lake and American Fork, February 12th through the 17th and President's Day. Better pricing's big, but better selection? That's huge. Instead of spending your money to see a handful of models hauled to the show, you're getting better than show pricing on our entire inventory of new and used RVs. You'll find pricing as low as $140 per month on approved credit, plus clearance pricing on all remaining new 2023s. You'll also make 0 payments until May on approved credit and get generous trade-in offers on your current RV. Start shopping now at skipthervshow.com. Better brands, bigger selection, lower than show pricing, and free admission? Why settle? Come to the Better Than Show pricing event at Bish's RV in Salt Lake and American Fork, February 12th through the 17th and President's Day. Bish's RV, where memories begin. Stock number 73504 and 76976. Based on 20% down, 8.99% APR for 180 months. Subject to prior sale. See dealer for details.
Hey folks, it's Doug and Kathy with Window World.
Doug, can you believe it's been 20 years?
What's been 20 years?
Well, since we opened our first Window World store.
That is amazing. Our motto today is the same. Quality products, professionally installed, backed up by our awesome warranty.
And our team shares those very same values.
Come see us today. We have stores in Murray and Spanish Fork for your convenience.
Experience the Window World difference. Call 801-281-8111 or visit windowworldutah.com.
And we promise no baloney.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
Hi everyone, it's Congressman Blake Moore here. It's been a busy start to 2024, and I am hard at work advancing Utah's priorities in Congress. From passing critical federal budget reform legislation in the House Budget Committee to pushing a historic bipartisan tax package in the House Ways and Means Committee, my team and I are digging in on pro-growth, pro-family policies. I'm also using my new role as vice chair of the House Republican Conference to bring a voice from Utah to the leadership table. As the first Republican from Utah elected to House or Senate leadership, I am grateful to advocate for your values in this capacity. I have many updates I'd like to share with you, so please join us for my upcoming Teletown Hall on Thursday, February 15th at 1 p.m. by dialing in at 833-305-1678. That's Thursday, February 15th at 1 p.m. at 833-305-1678. I'd love to hear from you. Visit my website at blakemore.house.gov for more information and sign up for our weekly e-newsletter. Thank you, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
A crash in Cottonwood Heights with traffic control in place at the intersection of Fort Union Boulevard and 2300 East. And all clear on your Valley freeways. Need a perfect event venue? There's a place. This is the place. Heritage Park. Ideal for weddings, events, featuring 11 venues, beautiful grounds, affordability for any celebration. Call or visit thisistheplace.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Clouds build up over northern Utah with a small storm expected Thursday morning. Right now we're at 47 degrees with mostly cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, the numbers continue to suggest that the American people are not especially looking forward to the possibility of a rematch between the former president and the current president. And many are saying they are willing to look at something or somewhere else in terms of a vote for president of the United States. And the interesting thing is both sides are up in arms about this. Democrats and Republicans alike are really lashing out at third-party groups, at independent groups. We want to dig into that just a little bit. And someone who's done that in a really big way, Matt Welch, of course, is editor-at-large at Reason.com, and actually has a really fascinating piece on third-party candidates and the gap that it's creating between President Biden and former President Trump and what those impacts are. So we wanted to dig into that just a little bit, and always great to have Matt on the show. Matt, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
All right, so let's dig into this. Obviously, the American people are none too thrilled about the possibility of this all playing out. You've looked at this in the context of what if it's not a two-person race? What if it's a 3, 4, or 5-person race? What are the numbers telling us?
Well, it will be a 5-person race, maybe a 6-person race, depending on whether No Labels decides to get into the ring with someone like Joe Manchin or Chris Christie at the top of their ticket, because they have achieved ballot access in 14, 15 states, and they expect to get 32. We know the Libertarian Party is going to have 40-something states. RFK is gunning for 50, the Green Party in the 30s. So most people are going to see 5 or 6 names on their ballot, so what happens then? And now we have enough polling to finally get a little bit of an apples to apples. It's a snapshot of what things look like in early February, which is to say everyone is depressed and is reaching for their bottle of Malort or whatever. But also, some of these polls are asking the same set of voters 2 different questions. One is Trump versus Biden, but then it's Trump versus Biden plus maybe Jill Stein from the Green Party and RFK as an independent, or Cornel West, who's going to be an independent kind of progressive on some ballots. And that's pretty interesting. And what that shows so far, is preliminarily, again in February, is that when you start adding a bunch more names on there, the gap between the 2 major party candidates gets wider, which is to say Trump gains points. He gains, I think, in something like 19 polls that they've taken. Biden has gained in only 2 of them, and by a little bit, whereas Trump has gained in 13 of the 19 polls, and they've been tied in a few others. And when you eyeball it, it also begins to make a little bit of sense. And I go into some detail in the piece. What's curious right now in the race is that usually in major party races and minor party races, there is more vote out there than people usually expect among people who are very anti-war or anti-U.S. intervention into affairs. You think of Howard Dean, that's how he vaulted to prominence. Barack Obama did. You could argue that Donald Trump distinguished himself against the Republican field in 2016 by doing that. So when you look at the third-party field, particularly on the left side, right, Jill Stein and Cornel West, they're basically accusing Joe Biden of genocide, as are a shockingly high number of young voters in America. Young Democrats and Democrats in general are really chagrined at his Gaza policy. So there's room to run against him in that lane over there. And you can bet that in addition to those two candidates, that whoever the Libertarian Party candidate, remember that's the third biggest party, they've won third place for 3 consecutive presidential elections. That's going to be an anti-interventionist. They don't have anybody who's sort of pro-war on that side at all. So it says to me that combined with just how old these people are and how much Americans are just absolutely like gobsmacked that we're having this rematch among the two unpopular old guys, there's a lot more of a fertile ground for a third party and independent candidate than we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, and I think it's always interesting to look, and you pointed this out, that a lot of times you see these third-party candidates, the Jill Stein, the Cornel West. I do have to give you credit for describing Cornel West's finances as notoriously shambolic. Fantastic use of the word. But often we see in these that the American people kind of get to October, they get to that first Tuesday of November, and suddenly they fall into that fear trap of the either or, the false choice, and I don't want to throw my vote away, and I want to vote for the winner, or I want to be against that person because it'd be horrible if they got in. And so we end up into this fear space, fear of losing power, that often kind of collapses those middle options or those third, fourth, or fifth options out there. As you look at it moving forward, and you hinted at this and you really got into this in the piece, in terms of President Biden's path to victory, the risk for him is far more on the political left than it is even the political center.
Yeah, there isn't a lot of proven popularity in the political center. Like I just want both sides to get together, and we just need a pragmatic solution to Social Security or whatnot. And I kind of agree with that crowd about Social Security, and I sometimes agree with their overall tenor. But there's been a lot of people trying to run in that lane or think about running in that lane. Think of Michael Bloomberg. Think of Howard Schultz. Think of Jeff Flake. And those have been some of the most hated people in American politics over the last 7 or 8 years. And that's precisely because of what you were pointing out before, the negative polarization. When we're at a time when we're really, really scared about the other guy, of the guy in the other team, those characters who are sort of in the middle of the road are seen as like hopelessly naive, rich and out of touch. I noticed that Joe Manchin now is finally getting polled here and there on some of these polls that include third-party names. And there's no guarantee at all that he'll be the no-labels candidate if they decide to run one, which they're going to decide after Super Tuesday. But they threw him in there against, Bobby Kennedy, everybody else, 3%. Right? He's a sitting senator. He's someone who has some national notoriety. I'm not sure people are really interested. Right now, when they're thrown in polls, Jill Stein and Cornel West are each averaging 2.2%. That's not much, but add it together, 4.4. We haven't seen a left-of-center third-party or independent candidate get 4.4% of the vote in 100 years. Wow. So that does mean that it's identifying a threat. It doesn't mean that's what's going to happen because, as you point out, basically whatever the third-party polling is right now, with a couple of exceptions, it's not likely to get a whole lot higher. Maybe Bobby Kennedy is a bit of a wild card. He just did a Super Bowl ad for crying out loud, and he's got some name recognition, so maybe he's got some space to grow upwards. But generally, the longer a campaign runs, the more people can be reminded about how bad the other guy is, and then whatever that final polling day is, the day before the election, go ahead and lop that off by 1/3 as well. But Gary Johnson was polling at 5% on Election Day in 2016, and he got 3.3%.
Yeah. Great perspective. Great insight, as always. Matt Welch, editor-at-large at Reason. Check out his piece at Reason.com. Matt, we look forward to having you back because this is a conversation that's not going away, and I always appreciate your perspective. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you much. Appreciate it.
All right. Again, that's Matt Welch, editor-at-large at Reason. And this is really interesting to me. Will, in the end, everyone vote out of fear, or will they vote on a vision for freedom moving forward? We'll be right back.
I lost 34 pounds on the SOTA weight loss program, SOTAweightloss.com. And I had done other programs before, but I always just felt like I was sort of on a conveyor belt. Here, eat these frozen meals, come back next week, eat these frozen meals. Yeah. And I thought, if I'm going to do this one more time and it's going to last for the rest of my life, I need somebody to know I have unique challenges. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I need to eat at different times of day. I need energy for that. How are you going to help me with that? And the SOTA nutritionist figured it out.
That is the difference maker, and not just while you're trying to reach your goal weight, but even after you reach your weight. They treat you like a person.
If you are serious about getting healthy and you're ready for a program that treats you like a person and not a number, you're ready for SOTA Weight Loss.
Boy, we can all relate to that, can't we? My daughter lost 42 pounds, and we know they can help you too. If you have struggled with weight loss in the past, end that struggle today. Go to SOTAweightloss.com, spelled SOTA, stands for state of the art.
Getting your biggest tax refund from Jackson Hewitt can lead to some spirited reactions.
Jackson Hewitt!
Jackson Hewitt is so sure that you'll get your biggest refund that if they don't, you get your money back plus $100.
Jackson Hewitt!
And Jackson Hewitt also guarantees the accuracy of your return for life. So don't just sit there. For your biggest refund guaranteed, walk into a Jackson Hewitt today and dance out Jackson Hewitt!
Pizza's here. Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
The Western Hunting and Conservation Expo is coming to Salt Lake City February 15th to 18th. It's the biggest hunting show in the West, featuring Utah's top 200 hunting permits for just $5 each. See hundreds of exhibitors and watch Jaegertown and Nico Moon perform live. Get discount admission at Sportsman's Warehouse, Les Schwab Tires, Bass Pro Cabela's, and Utah Toyota dealers. And best of all, you can hunt Utah's biggest bucks and bulls for just $5. The Hunting Expo is brought to you by the Utah Office of Tourism. Get tickets and details at huntexpo.com.
They say it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert. You may not have that kind of time for weatherization, energy efficiency, and appliance rebates, but we do. Dominion Energy's ThermWise program has experts who know where and how to save money. They help homeowners and businesses find simple ways to conserve natural gas and rebates through upgrades that may help to save even more. We put our energy into helping you conserve it, so you can spend your 10,000 hours becoming an expert in what matters to you. Start with a home energy plan at thermwise.com.
If you're trying to decide which gutter protection to put on your home, don't just ask how they'll handle leaves. Ask how they'll handle ice. Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors, and that's right, ice. See, plenty of gutter guards are good at keeping out leaves, but most are made with flimsy materials that can bend, buckle, and break under the weight of too much ice. Kind of a big problem in an icy state like Utah, right? At RGS Exteriors, our exclusive gutter protection systems are built Utah tough. They're made with premium strength materials that hold up to 1,200 pounds of ice per square foot. Simply put, they're not going to budge. Our gutter guards are also certified to handle hurricane-level winds and rain. Mother Nature can't damage them. Guaranteed. Utah Tough Products. That's the RGS way. For a free estimate, call 801-280-3110 or visit rgsexteriors.com. That's rgsexteriors.com or 801-280-3110.
Dave and Dujanovic here. You hear us every weekday on KSL from 9 to noon.
But have you listened to our podcast?
We're running a secret contest just for podcast listeners.
You could win a new pair of AirPod Pros every week in February just for listening.
Here's how you do it. Find our show on KSLpodcast.com
or wherever you listen to podcasts and listen for the keywords.
When you hear one, text it to 57500 and you'll be in to win.
That's it. We'll see you on our podcast, Dave and Dujanovic, with KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson. Listening to Inside Sources is a little different from just reading the headlines because we're always going to get you into that think again moment. We have experts from around the country, across the world, and right here local to home that'll help us dive in and get past just the hype, the fluff, the fake fights, and the false choice so we can get into the news to help you connect the dots and make the news make sense.
Join Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson, 1 to 3 on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a Utah Highway Patrol trooper was hurt this morning when he fell from a freeway bridge on I-80. Second, a mountain lion wandered away from the USU campus this morning after it was spotted in a tree. Third, President Biden working to get the House to pass a bill with aid for Ukraine and Israel. Right now, 47 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. And, of course, as we've continued to watch the Dow experiencing gravity today, falling at a pretty significant rate, down 700 points at one point in the session. And, of course, a lot of that we want to look at as to why. Is it the inflation numbers that just came out? We want to dig into all of those and get beyond just the headlines. And, of course, we always turn to our friend Jeff Cox. And, Jeff, welcome back to the program.
Hi, Boyd. Great to be here.
Hey, give us some perspective in terms of, one, let's start with the inflation report. I think that did surprise a few folks. What actually is in it? What does it mean?
Yeah, so inflation coming in for January, a little hotter than expected. The market had been looking for kind of this continued sort of slow bleed of inflation coming down. We saw a monthly increase of 0.3% on the headline number, and also I think it was a 0.4 increase on the core. So these were pretty hot numbers. Core inflation still at 3.9%. From a year ago, which is a good deal away from the Fed's 2% target. Headline inflation still stuck at 3.1%. So the expectation had been for it to fall to 2.9%, which would have been the first time we've been below 3% since going back to, I think, March of 2001, something like that. So kind of, big picture, inflation is still very much an issue for the Fed. We've heard from multiple Fed speakers, from Jay Powell all the way on down, saying that we're not ready to declare victory on inflation. We still do worry that taking our foot off the brake too quickly here could be a mistake. And the Fed messaging has been crystal clear on where they stand. The market just chose not to pay attention to them. And finally, hey, here it is. This is what the Fed guys are talking about. This is why they're afraid to get on this aggressive rate cutting regime that the market have been pricing in, because they're just not sure yet. They need more data to convince them that inflation is moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and so as you look at that, I think that's where a lot of people are looking now to say, okay, does this mean that any possibility of a rate cut is going to be anywhere on the horizon, or are we just going to be in this holding pattern for a little bit now?
Well, at the meeting last week, of course, Powell came right out and pretty much said, 2 weeks ago, I guess it is now, pretty much came out and said no March rate cut. Reinforced that message in the 60 Minutes interview that he did with Scott Pelley, no March rate cut. So the market kind of got that message finally, loud and clear. Then I think the market moved to May and said, well, okay, March is okay. We got another meeting coming up in May, and the Fed can just go ahead and go then. And now we're taking May off the table, and now we're out in June. And it's more than just going out in June. I think there's just a general sense of, like you said, holding patterns, a good way to put it, that the rate cuts that everybody had been counting on, kind of getting back to a more normal monetary policy regime, that looks like it's further out into the future, again, at least until June, and then who knows from there. So, of course, the market pinning a lot of its hopes on those events transpiring, and now that they didn't transpire, you're seeing a recoil in the market. Is this a one-day thing? Is it something that will see longer-term effects? Hard to say right now. This could be just a knee-jerk reaction, but but it is basically a recalibration here for the market.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing to look at in terms of, is this just a one-day thing? I heard one person today explain it as a kind of an excuse to take some of the froth off the top of the market.
Sure.
Kind of walk us through that.
Well, look, if you kind of really step back on this and look at the big picture, and you see, what's the narrative for a good market backdrop, and you say to yourself, good economic growth, that's certainly there. Strong corporate profits. We had a pretty good quarter, so a little bumpy, a little uneven, but all in all, pretty good quarter as far as corporate earnings go. The jobs picture is still looking very good, but maybe we probably go back to that narrative that we had around this time of last year. Is this the waning days of the expansion, and are we looking at a potential recession out in the future? And the fact that we're not going to have easier monetary policy, is that going to complicate things? So it's just a lot of moving parts, a lot of layers to the onion here that the market's got to peel apart and figure out where we're going. So I would expect to see at least at the very least some choppiness going here until there's a better picture. Picture comes a little clearer. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And just to navigate that choppiness, we'll throw in some politics into all of that in terms of how this navigates during a presidential election year. We still got government funding that's got to be done. Just a few weeks away. Once again, we'll have another showdown process. And then, of course, you have the Biden administration who's trying to navigate the choppy waters of trying to explain some of the good news that you just pointed out in terms of jobs and some of those things, and then having to help the American people get into alignment in terms of that inflation number and what they're actually feeling in terms of the dollars.
Well, you and I have had this conversation before, Boyd, about the messaging from the administration about all these different cross currents that they have to deal with. Leo Brainerd, who the head of the National Economic Council, was out today and banging the drum as they've been doing about this whole shrinkflation narrative, and it really doesn't seem to be anything that's gaining traction. I mean, I guess everybody knows that, and it's all part of the blame it on the big evil corporations thing that has not been a winner so far for the administration, at least in terms of, if you look at the public sentiment polls, that people are still very concerned about the handling of the economy from the White House, and whether they really understand what the issues are, and if you're still looking at that and trying to play the blame game here, it just doesn't seem like a narrative that has a lot of traction. But that's been their big word lately, shrinkflation. So it's blame the corporations again. But whether that really takes hold is hard to say, and then it creates a whole other level of uncertainty for the market. All this political uncertainty and all the questions being raised over President Biden's competency and age and all the other things that it just feels like a little bit of tone deafness going on there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just one last thing real quickly. You talk about that uncertainty. You've pointed this out to us and explained this to us in the past, that the market can handle most things. Good news can handle bad news, tough news. Mm-hmm. The uncertainty is what really drives it all crazy. Just describe where we are in that uncertainty space.
Well, we're very high on the uncertainty scale right now. We don't know what's next for monetary policy. We're not really sure what's next for fiscal policy. We don't know what's really going to happen in terms of the political landscape. You have two pretty unpopular party leaders set to square off in an election for, basically, two candidates who nobody seems to want. And so all of this creates a tough environment for the market. The volatility is going to keep going to be a persistent factor there, and but then in a couple of days it'll be something else in the market. I'll move on somewhere, and who knows? But I would just say for now it's things are going to be tricky.
Yeah, it is definitely going to be choppy waters, to be sure. Jeff Cox is the best of the best in the business. He's the economics editor for CNBC.com, inside source that we always turn to help us navigate those choppy waters, because he knows the waters and he knows how to navigate the boat. Jeff, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Boyd. Great talking to you.
All right, again, that's Jeff Cox, economics editor for CNBC.com. He really is the best in the business of breaking it down, helping us understand what's really going on. And he talked a lot today about the choppy waters. And this is what we pay our elected officials to deal with. I've often said it's when the sun's out and the breeze is light, everybody's got a good captain out there. But when you're in the choppy waters, you find out who understands the ocean and who actually knows how to navigate the boat. We'll see if any of our political leaders can do that. That wraps it up for hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. Hour number 2 is coming up next.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour: Utah Highway Patrol trooper seriously injured this morning when he fell from a freeway overpass at 7200 West and I-80. The trooper had been assisting other police agencies in a pursuit. The driver they was chasing was arrested later at a hotel west of the airport. We could see more child care facilities in Utah under a bill that would turn existing state buildings into high-quality child care facilities. State Senator Luz Escamilla says this would help reduce child care deserts in the state.
More than 70% of our population live in child care deserts, meaning they have no access to any child care within a 5-mile radius of where they live or work.
The bill received a favorable recommendation in committee. It moves on now to the Senate floor. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Inflation was rising at a slightly slower rate last month. The Consumer Price Index up 3.1% compared with a year ago. Here's Art Hogan, the chief market strategist at B. Riley Wealth.
The market participants had gotten used to the slow and steady decline in prices and inflation, and today upset the apple cart a little bit.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average has recovered a little bit of what it lost in the day, but it's still down 524 points right now. And the NASDAQ is down 286 points. And we'll see clouds sticking around. No rain until later, though. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Grab your family and some gear and head to the 2024 Skijoring the Bear exhibition in Garden City on Friday, February 23rd. Bring your skis and join the race, or attend as a spectator to watch horses pull skiers through a course with jumps. Race divisions include Open, Novice, and Rookie, with buckles and cash prizes for the division winners. Everyone can enjoy food trucks, vendors, and more. Skijoring the Bear in Garden City, just west of Heritage Park. Helmets are required for skijoring, and you need to bring your own skis. Kids 10 to 12 are free. Great lodging deals can be found at bearlake.org. Attend this exhibition event on Friday, February 23rd to see or experience the excitement of skijoring. Visit skijoringthebear.com for more information. skijoringthebear.com.
IVC is celebrating 20 years providing quality service in Utah. You've probably heard their saying by now, life starts when the pain stops. IVC is the most trusted interventional and vein center in the state, and they've been voted Best of Utah Valley 10 years running. The 7 physicians at IVC provide state-of-the-art, comprehensive vein care with many years of experience. The team at IVC takes the time to get to know you and your veins so you're comfortable with the right diagnosis and the right treatment. Patients are like family at IVC. You've also heard many radio ads over the years with real people describing how IVC has dramatically improved their quality of life by eliminating the pain and discomfort caused by varicose veins. Well, what are you waiting for? Don't let vein disease slow you down even one more day, because life starts when the pain stops. Visit iVein.com today to set up a free screening. That's iVein.com.
Oh, this cold.
Honey?
Honey?
Honey, you need DayQuil Severe Honey.
DayQuil Severe Honey gives you powerful cold and flu symptom relief with a honeylicious taste, because life doesn't stop for a cold.
Okay, I'm ready to go.
Now I'm getting a cold.
Honey.
Try DayQuil Severe Honey for powerful cold and flu relief. DayQuil Severe with honey flavor. The daytime coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever, honeylicious, power through your day medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Hey, Joe Montana here. Back in my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia, a bacterial lung disease that can be life-threatening. If you're 65 or older, or 19 or older with certain chronic conditions like diabetes or asthma, you're at increased risk. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist about vaccination and learn more at knowpneumonia.com. That's KNOW pneumonia.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
It's time for the Sportsman's Vacation and RV Show, February 16th through the 19th at the Mountain America Expo. Save $2 at UtahRVShow.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We have a report of a crash with possible injuries on the east side of downtown Salt Lake City, 500 south, about 1600 east, near Guardsman's Way. But it does look like you could see some backups in the area, also due to the traffic light. Valley Freeway traffic looks good. Call 866-0RES and say you want the KSL special. $33 per room cleaned and $50 off air duct cleaning. 0RES. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Our KSL weather: clouds building up over northern Utah today and tomorrow. Then Thursday morning, a small storm expected. And right now, 48 degrees and partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Probably the loudest and clearest message that has happened throughout the lead up to the 2024 presidential election cycle is that the vast majority of the American people are not really happy with Plan A for either the Democrats or the Republicans. Both Donald Trump and President Biden hold consistent negative approval ratings amongst the American people. Prospect of a 2020 rematch is somewhere between appalling and nauseating for the vast majority of the American people. So the question then becomes, if Plan A is so bad on both sides, is anybody really thinking about or working through what a Plan B could actually look like? Well, let's get to Plan B. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, we hear a lot of talk that there's just no other options for the Democrats, and there's no other options for the Republicans. It's inevitable that we will have a 2.0 version of former President Trump, current President Biden, and that will be the race for the White House in 2024. The interesting thing to me, though, is that there are actually paths to have a different result, a different kind of competition of ideas and candidates that could lead to different results on the first Tuesday of November. The question is whether anyone has the political courage and the political will to actually carry out the Plan B, C, D, E, or F, as opposed to just sticking with a really bad Plan A for both sides. It was very interesting yesterday. Chris Steyerwalt, political editor for News Nation, friend of the show, also with the Dispatch, he was on News Nation talking about the challenges for the Democrats, growing noise on the Democratic side about President Biden and whether he should stay in the race. So the really interesting thing to me, as Chris Steyerwalt was asked about this, was that what should people really be looking for? What are those around the president saying, or what should they say? And how does that conversation actually come about? Take a listen.
So when George Washington left after his second term, he knew the truth, which was that if the United States could not continue on without him, then it couldn't continue on. If Joe Biden believes that the only way that America can make it, and the only way Donald Trump can be defeated, if it's him, that he is the only one who can do it, that's a tacit admission of defeat, that the country and our politics are sort of irreparably broken.
You've heard me talk about that before, this idea of the fallacy of the indispensable. And I think this is true on both sides of the aisle this year. As Chris Steyerwalt pointed out, if Joe Biden and those around him believe that the only path to defeating Donald Trump and saving the country is through Joe Biden, then that's a real admission of defeat of our politics. If those on the right believe that former President Trump is the only path to beating Joe Biden, that's the same admission of defeat. And so we've got two very flawed candidates currently perched at the top of both parties. And to me, it's really interesting that that's where we are. But if everyone believes that they're the only option, that's the wrong option. Like, we're not even in the right ballpark. We're not in the right zip code. We may not even be in the right galaxy because we're having the wrong conversation. And if it's all about this fear-based, well, I have to vote for this person even though I don't think they should be in office, even though I don't think they're qualified, even though I detest them, deplore them, whatever it may be, but I'm still going to vote for them because I'm afraid of the other side, then we are admitting defeat. That's an important message for you and for me, is that's admitting defeat. If we're so afraid to vote different for fear that the other side will win as a result, then the status quo has won, and we are admitting defeat. And I do think it's the brilliance of George Washington was the fact that he knew the path forward for the nation had to go right through him not staying in office for a third term. That it takes great humility. That takes great perspective. That takes a great vision of what the country is about and what the country can actually do. And so that fallacy of the indispensable, I think Washington showed that in ways that were powerful and instructive that we actually need to get back to. Now, let's go to the Democratic side for a minute. Chris Steyerwalt was also asked about a hypothetical process. If the Democrats, if President Biden decided to say, I am going to step aside, what would that look like? How could that actually play out?
Certainly, Biden could step aside at any point and say that he wasn't going to seek another term. Probably the wise course would be to let the primaries run their course, let Biden amass all the delegates, and then on the eve of the convention say, and I don't want the nomination, to be Sherman-esque and say, I do not seek and I will not accept, I will not run, and force his party and the people who are there at the convention to have what used to be common in American politics, an open convention, and start the work of choosing a replacement.
And so I think that is, if there is a path on the Democratic side, I think it would require President Biden to continue through the delegate process, continue through the primaries, amass all of the delegates, and then have what would be riveting television to actually have an open convention. We haven't had that on either side for so long. I think most people have forgotten that actually used to be the way it worked. And you'd get to these very raucous conventions and things would play out and it would be an extraordinary thing to watch. But that would be the path, I think. The president would have to continue to amass those delegates in the primaries, get to the convention in August, and then say, I'm going to step inside. And then it would get really interesting. He could still be the kingmaker. He still could, tap who he believes the delegates should vote for and could still have his prints all over that. Question is, would he be willing to do that? On the Republican side, of course, the lone challenger still standing is Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley has been making the case over and over that former President Trump continues to lose. And the question will be whether everyone's tired of losing. And so there is still a path. Clearly, we're only a few states in. Super Tuesday's coming up. That will be the most telling on the Republican side to see if there is a path for Nikki Haley to get enough delegates to make it interesting come convention time for the Republicans. The thing that I think is real crucial for all of us to think again about is, one, we don't do coronations in this country. We fought a war over that. We got independence over that. And we should never have coronations. We should have great debates. We should have rigorous primary seasons that test the candidates in significant ways, not just sound bites, not just photo ops, but real debate about real policy issues. And so I think it's interesting for the Democrats and the Republicans to say, Plan A is not looking great. Are we willing? Do we have the political courage to actually go to Plan B? That's something we're thinking about.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Some updates affect your commute.
Emergency traffic due to a multiple vehicle crash.
Other stories affect lives and safety.
This helicopter is on its side. Propeller gone.
When you're listening to KSL News Radio, you're getting the first information on the biggest stories. When it's breaking news, we have you covered at KSL News Radio.
Hi, Cindy Olsen here to tell you about the National Embroidery Month sale at Dave's Bernina in Provo and St. George, featuring a limited time 48 months no interest offer. Buy a specially priced Bernina 790 Pro or 590E machine and receive a free embroidery accessory and software gift bundle worth $3,500. Full feature Burnett sewing machines are as low as $1,499. That includes free software, a $1,200 value. All machines are discounted, such as the Bernina 500E for $1,999 and a hot deal of $2,999 for the Bernina 700E. 25% off embroidery hoops and Bernina embroidery bundle and modules. All new Berninas come with a 5-year warranty and free classes. Hurry in for amazing bargains on previously loved machines at Dave's Bernina, 2017 North, 550 West in Provo and 691 East, St. George Boulevard.
Okay, that's good. Whoa, Dave!
Sorry, I'll go grab some paper towels. You can't let Dave pour things. He works at JCW's. They fill stuff up past the brim over there, like their milkshakes. They're thick, rich, and oh my gosh.
Delicious?
Oh no, Dave's filling up Crystal's car for her.
Dave, stop!
Hey, this is Clark for JCW. Stop into any of our 5 locations today. We're located in American Fork, Thanksgiving Point, Provo, South Jordan, and our new location in Harriman. Come in and see why at JCW's we believe in quality and a lot of it.
If you're on the journey of building your dream home, remodeling, or just want to brighten up some rooms, let the Blind Man be your tour guide into the possibilities 2024 has to offer. Window coverings balance functionality and aesthetics by managing light and privacy effortlessly. Whether you seek a captivating design element, enhanced privacy, light-blocking solutions, or an infusion of natural light, the Blind Man's consultants are here to navigate you through the latest trends, tailoring them to complement your unique style. Motorized and automated roller shades have emerged as the preferred choice in 2024. This is driven by features such as the convenience they provide for hard-to-reach windows, providing safety for both children and pets, and contributing to energy efficiency. The Blind Man's experts would love to help you explore the options along your journey. Visit theblindman.com today to set up a free in-home consultation. Theblindman.com.
From Ogden to St. George, Utah's premier window covering provider, The Blind Man.
Do you enjoy fishing, hunting, or just soaking in the beautiful outdoors? Then you need to check out the KSL Outdoors Show, airing Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and midnight on KSL 5 TV. Outdoors with Me, Adam Eagle, is a unique show that takes viewers on a journey through Utah's beautiful backcountry. Watch it live every weekend or find the Outdoor Show on YouTube, KSLOutdoors.com, Facebook, and Instagram. It's the KSL Outdoors Show, brought to you by Camp Chef.
This Monday Tax Tip is brought to you by Susan Spears, CEO of the Utah Association of CPAs.
In 2021, Congress passed the Corporate Transparency Act. This law creates a new beneficial ownership information reporting requirement as part of the U.S. government's efforts to make it harder for bad actors to hide behind anonymous entities as part of illicit financial activities. In the U.S., it is estimated that 32 million companies will be required to make this filing to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN. To find out if your organization is exempt, contact your CPA.
Get the most out of your income tax preparation when you hire a CPA. Go to uacpa.org to find a CPA that's right for you. That's uacpa.org. uacpa.org. Listen to KSL on Monday for more tax tips from the Utah Association of CPAs.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
A stranger with a gun fires on 2 teens, shattering lives. But that's only the beginning of the story. Listen to The Letter at theletterpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a Utah Highway Patrol trooper was seriously hurt when he fell off a freeway bridge near I-80. He'd been assisting other officers with a chase. Second, the state Senate is looking at a bill to expand child care in empty state facilities. And third, the Consumer Price Index rose a little bit higher over the past 2 months compared to the fall. Right now, 46 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. As we continue to watch all of the battles brewing as it relates to social media here in the state of Utah, across the country, and around the planet, there's a lot of important conversations that need to be had in terms of proper role of government. What are the regulatory policies need to be? How do we protect our children? How do we make sure free speech continues to thrive and flourish? There's a host of things that we have to get to. And when we try to unravel all of that and make all of that make sense, connect those dots, we always turn to Shoshana Weissman, Digital Fellow at the R Street Institute. She manages R Street social media, email marketing, other digital assets, along with a host of other occupational licensing reform, social media, regulatory policy. I have to mention Section 230. We'll come back to that. And great to have Shoshana back on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So give us some, let's start with kind of the high level. Obviously, Utah has been on the front lines on a lot of these battles with social media regulation, especially as it relates to minors. Give us kind of the 30,000-foot level view first in terms of what is it that we should be thinking about when it comes to regulations around tech?
For sure. So basically, a lot of lawmakers are worried about kids online and how they handle social media and how they use social media. So they want to create age verification to block kids, basically anyone under 18, from using social media without parental consent. But the problem is to do age verification right in ways that would comply with Utah's law or other laws. You have to upload your government ID, your social security number, scan your face, different combinations of things like that, which are big security risks. And then with the law itself, there's just it's hard to implement right, and there's a lot of constitutional issues. So those are kind of the big things.
Yeah, and so let's dig into those in terms of how that this is starting to play out as states in particular try to grapple with that right level. And obviously the logistics nightmare of it, the security nightmare of it, as you said, government ID and so on. If we're uploading that, is that secure? What happens if that gets violated? That seems to be pretty fraught with challenges in terms of how it actually would happen.
Yeah, on the security side, one of the big issues that's really sad, and this isn't due to these lawmakers or anything, but social security numbers are leaked a lot. There's a lot of social security numbers you can find online if you want it. It's really bad, but it's just true. And a lot of my information was leaked through the government, Obamacare exchange, so I had to deal with that. And also, if your government ID is leaked and other people have that number and that information, your face scans connected to your ID, there's so many security risks. And also, remember that these laws apply to TikTok. And Governor Cox has made a point that TikTok can't be on government devices because it's a security risk. Well, even if by some chance we ban TikTok, how do we know that another platform wouldn't pop up with ties to other government and say, oh, man, we need your government ID and social security number? There's real risks to be had here, and we shouldn't be encouraging people to upload stuff like that at every turn.
Yeah, no question about that. We're actually going to have a deep dive conversation on TikTok and the lobbying effort around that. And, of course, the fact that the President of the United States was on TikTok over the weekend, launching some things campaign-wise, clearly targeting younger voters where they tend to live and be on TikTok and other places like that. So as you were describing that, I remember when you were in the middle of your information being leaked through the Obamacare process there. Give us a sense in terms of what that meant in terms of just your life and the effort that it took to kind of regroup and recoup some of that.
Oh, I mean, I'm not in a great place. It's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but it's okay. Basically, I just have to pay for I have to pay for Experian now, and they gave me like some time free of it through the government. I mean, air quotes free, but I bought the wrong plan, so I've been paying out of pocket for Experian. I have my credit file locked. I have all these extras in there, and it's extra money I have to pay for this stuff. And what if someone's information's leaked and maybe they don't have disposable income to spend on securing their information that the government or social media companies have leaked? We have a long way to go to make sure that our nation's cybersecurity is secure, and also just individual. It's both individual and as a nation. And I'm very wary of laws that are trying to get us to expose more information and create opportunity for accidental breaches, for hacks, for enemy governments. There's so much risk here around this.
Yeah, no question about that. And as we look at some of the regulatory things that are being pushed forward or moved forward, kind of walk us through the balance point there in terms of kind of having some of that government control and regulation there in terms of truth and where we end up in terms of censorship on the other extreme.
Yeah, so it depends on the regulation, but the government is trying to change the way that we handle speech, both for kids and for adults. It tends to be more the left will push laws around misinformation and disinformation, but lies are First Amendment protected speech, so you have to take that into consideration. And with kids, it kind of varies the way people think about it. Some people are worried about kids uploading their own information online, but other times they're worried about them consuming information online and consuming too much of it in ways they don't like. But one thing that it's really important to remember is that the Supreme Court has upheld this for a long time, that kids have First Amendment rights. And most content online is First Amendment protected. So when you try to block kids from access to that from a government perspective, not a parent, parents can do whatever they want. Yeah. But when the government tries to do that, that raises serious First Amendment concerns. And it shouldn't be our goal to block kids from speech. It should be our goal to just empower parents to make decisions for their kids.
I think that's so vital. The empowering the parent part, I think, is absolutely vital. And the parent stepping up and playing that role, not abdicating that to government or schools or community. Parents really have to be more engaged and lean in a little harder, I think, in terms of what their kids are doing online and their role as parents in that.
Yeah, I posted about this a couple of weeks ago, but as a kid, I was kicked off AOL for debating abortion as like an 8-year-old, and my dad jumped in the forum and was like, my dad's like, I'm sorry, my daughter's 8, and then he watched my use a little bit more carefully. But I think it's important for parents to have that role, to use the tools that are out there, and I do wish there were some more comprehensive tools for parents. But I think the perfect solution is just going to be having parents in charge without requiring all these IDs and social security numbers and all the First Amendment problems. And I'm sad to say that Utah's replacing its laws because it wasn't doing so well in court, and it asked the court to hold off a hearing. But I've read those laws, and it doesn't leave them in a better place. There's some stuff in it I kind of like one of the bills encourages encryption, and I love that because that's good for security. But the bills are still very unconstitutional, and I'm going to have to be very unpopular again, and I'm really sad to say that.
That's it. We'll still keep you in the state. Don't worry about it. You still have a free pass to come. Just in our last 60 seconds here, Shoshana, give us just one thing, because all of these bills are complicated and complex, and they're going to have to navigate their way through the courts and all of that. Just give us one thing that you wish we were thinking about or talking differently about when it comes to this kind of security and this kind of regulation.
For sure. I think one thing that's missed in this is that there's really positive ways to use social media. I love using all trails, which would be covered by these bills. I love mapping out all my Wasatch trails. As a teenager, I used social media to figure out I have fibromyalgia when doctors were missing it. I also used social media to start my career as a teenager, getting to meet politicians on Facebook. So there's some kids who need to be off social media, and their parents have to make that decision. But I think we shouldn't lose all the positive uses that kids can still have online.
Yeah, absolutely. Great perspective as always, Shoshana Weissman, R Street Institute. Shoshana, thanks for your perspective. As always, you always have an open door and an open mic here in Salt Lake City. So we look forward to having you back soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's Shoshana Weissman joining us from the R Street Institute. And she brings out so many fascinating points in terms of how we go about this. There are some clear slippery slopes when it comes to First Amendment rights. There's real challenges when it comes to data security, especially that of our kids. But I think she nailed it in terms of the real answer always begins at home, and parents leaning into that process. Parents can do things that governments cannot and should not do, and we need to make sure that those parents are doing exactly that. We'll continue that discussion. Much more to come here on Inside Sources. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. A committee of state lawmakers has approved a bill that would end ranked choice voting in Utah. Representative Norm Thurston voted in favor of ending the program early.
Sometimes you do a clinical trial with the hope of gathering data and showing that something really works. But if you find out halfway through the clinical trial that it's not working, that it's actually harmful, you don't go all the way to the end hoping that the data reverses itself.
The bill is now headed to the full House. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. President Biden urging the House to pass a bill with funding for the war in Ukraine.
We can't walk away now. That's what Putin's betting on. He just flatly said that. Supporting this bill is standing up to Putin. Opposing it is playing into Putin's hand.
The Senate has already passed the bill in spite of opposition from Republicans like Utah's Mike Lee. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day, but not nearly as much as it was earlier. Closing trading now at 286 points down. And that was the NASDAQ, was 286 points down. It was the Dow that was down 524 points today. And the S&P 500 down 68. On the way, we've got clouds coming in, but not much rain just yet. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Bish's is skipping this year's big RV show for a big reason. It costs each dealer a fortune, and guess who gets stuck with the bill? Yep, you. So skip the big show expense and come to the Bish's Better Than Show pricing event for free admission, free parking, and Better Than Show pricing on new and used RVs. Only at Bish's RV in Salt Lake and American Fork, February 12th through the 17th and President's Day. Better pricing's big, but better selection? That's huge. Instead of spending your money to see a handful of models hauled to the show, you're getting Better Than Show pricing on our entire inventory of new and used RVs. You'll find pricing as low as $140 per month on approved credit, plus clearance pricing on all remaining new 2023s. You'll also make 0 payments until May on approved credit and get generous trade-in offers on your current RV. Start shopping now at skipthervshow.com. Better brands, bigger selection, lower than show pricing, and free admission? Why settle? Come to the Better Than Show pricing event at Bish's RV in Salt Lake and American Fork, February 12th through the 17th and President's Day. Bish's RV, where memories begin. Stock number 73504 and 76976. Based on 20% down, 8.99% APR for 180 months. Subject to prior sale. See dealer for details.
It's a mystery where Old Spice finds its amazing scents like Himalayan sea salt, but I'm thrilled they have because no other body wash exfoliates and moisturizes 24/7 like Old Spice Gentleman's Himalayan sea salt body wash. Now, if only there was a mountain range separating the Indian subcontinent from the Tibetan plateau where I could hide my Old Spice and keep my family from stealing it, my impossibly smooth skin will finally be safe.
Getting your biggest tax refund from Jackson Hewitt can lead to some spirited reactions.
Jackson Hewitt!
Jackson Hewitt is so sure that you'll get your biggest refund that if they don't, you get your money back plus $100.
Jackson Hewitt!
And Jackson Hewitt also guarantees the accuracy of your return for life. So don't just sit there. For your biggest refund guaranteed, walk into a Jackson Hewitt today and dance out Jackson Hewitt! Yeah!
Hi, this is Doug Wright. A little experiment here that you can try in your home just for fun. Take 2 water heaters, run hard water through one and soft water through the other, then count how many years each one lasts. Now, of course, I can save you all that trouble because the experiment takes place every day in countless homes right here in the state of Utah. The result's always the same. Hard water makes water heaters and other appliances conk out years before they should. And that's why when Dee and I built our new home, I informed the builder that we'd have Connecticut put in our soft water. I just won't settle for anything else. With Connecticut, you'll use 2/3 less salt. All the mechanical design makes it virtually maintenance-free. And I'll tell you what, your water heater and other appliances will last years longer. All you have to do is contact my friends at Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer. To learn more, call Connecticut. It's 801-576-8600 or log on to softwaterutah.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meeks.
We had some slowing westbound on the 21st South Freeway at about 9th West, so west of I-15. Looks like traffic is starting to move again, but residual delays back to the freeway. Looking for suspense, intrigue, and thrill? Download the new audiobook, The Fear of Silence. Powerful, riveting, 4.6 of 5 stars on Amazon. Everywhere audiobooks are sold. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather clouds building up over northern Utah today and tomorrow. We are expecting a small storm on Thursday morning. Right now, 46 degrees, mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
We're going to stay with the question just a little bit longer. We've been talking about social media and its role, a lot of the different regulatory things happening at both the federal and at the state level, which is really interesting to take a look at. But there's been a lot of chatter. You can think back just a year ago to the challenges with TikTok. At one point, clearly the big villain in our nation's capital. There were hearings, of course, that are usually more performative than they are instructive. But it did happen. And now we go to kind of this full circle moment a year later with the President of the United States campaign going to TikTok to go after those younger, hipper, cooler kind of voters. And we want to take a look at this in terms of security. We want to look at it in terms of the politics of it all. And as always, what is the role of the army of lobbyists? How does that impact things even that are serious to national security? Really pleased to have back on the program with us Haley Fuchs, reporter at Politico. And Haley, welcome back to the show, and a great piece at Politico.com on why President Biden just couldn't resist TikTok. Kind of give us the backstory.
So thank you so much for having me today. I think it's interesting because, some time ago, TikTok was kind of this boogeyman in Washington. It was kind of this villain that lawmakers of both parties were going after. The Biden administration asked ByteDance to divest from TikTok. And yet, what we saw this weekend is a quite shocking turn of events. The Biden campaign joined TikTok after ordering a TikTok not be on government phones. The administration did. And it was quite a turn of events.
Yeah, and so when you look at that, going from we're banning this is bad, we should either shut this down. A lot of lawmakers were saying we should just ban it completely, not just from government phones. We should just ban it from the United States. And then here we are just a year later to have the president out there on the app, on the platform, using it for political purposes. Kind of walk us through. We always say if you have an army of lawyers and lobbyists, you can get a lot of things done, or you can cool the temperature on things. Describe kind of the strategy that TikTok took in order to change the game and the dynamics.
Mhm. Well, it had truly, as you said, an army of lobbyists who were making its case in Washington and beyond. It spent millions of dollars to lobby lawmakers and the administration. It had former members of Congress, former senators who were helping to drive its cause. And ultimately, we saw that TikTok was able to spend this money, ride out the controversy essentially, and essentially come out unscathed.
You also mentioned in your piece how the administration and the campaign for President Biden have been using influencers on TikTok and engaging them in a way to, again, go after these younger voters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, influencers have been a kind of a partner of the Biden administration for some time now. And it's ironic because I did some reporting last year which showed that TikTok was targeting the Biden-associated influencers to make their own case in Washington as part of this effort to bring influencers to Washington to stop a potential TikTok ban. And so, yes, the administration is partnering with influencers at the same time. So is TikTok, and there was kind of a convergence of agendas here.
Yeah, and that's always an interesting thing. I know that President Biden took some heat from his own party in the United States Senate of saying, regardless of what's legal and where we are in all of that, the mixed messages can be very concerning. How does the administration and the campaign kind of thread that needle in terms of this mixed message?
Mm-hmm. I think they're being careful here. We still don't really know what the status of the administration's demand that ByteDance divest in TikTok is. So it really is kind of unclear where we go from here. But certainly what people told me is that it's harder to go after TikTok if you are a user of the app. If you look back at the Obama campaign being an early adopter of Facebook in 2008, that potentially complicated the Obama administration's scrutiny of Facebook.
Yeah, and I think it's also one of those areas, and both sides have been guilty of this in terms of just undermining the trust in the institutions. We've talked about it a lot over the last week in terms of Republicans calling for a lot of immigration reform, and then based on some political navigating, better not to deal with that now and keep it for political purposes and fundraising purposes. Both sides do that. And now here you've got the administration doing the same thing as it relates to TikTok. How do you see that playing out just in terms of being able to trust the process? So if there is a moment where a committee has got to call TikTok back in front of it to explain themselves in terms of what they're doing in the United States or with U.S. citizens' data, how does that play out?
Mm-hmm. I think you make a really interesting point there. If you look back at, at one point, Facebook was kind of the villain du jour in Congress, and Facebook kind of skirted along and remained unscathed. We saw these university presidents appear before Congress late last year and become kind of the villains du jour in a hearing around anti-Semitism. And then that kind of seems to have quieted down a little bit. I think it's interesting the way that Washington kind of seizes on these moments. And then it almost seems that they disappear. And there's all this momentum around some sort of change and action, something around national security concerns around TikTok. And then we get to where we are today, which is kind of that momentum dissipates when it becomes potentially less politically relevant.
Yeah, you pointed out in your piece that after a good $4.4 million worth of lobbying, that temperature has cooled a little bit. The focus has shifted onto something else. I will give TikTok credit. They've also done a brilliant job in terms of marketing. That you've got grandmas using TikTok to connect with their grandchildren, and you've got nuns and priests using it to connect with the weary and downtrodden. They've done a great job of painting this and framing this as something very, very different. As you look at it moving forward, Haley, what is it that you're watching for that might change that dynamic or might shift the conversation as it relates to TikTok?
I think there will be a kind of continued question around national security concerns around the app. Those certainly aren't going away. I think it'll be interesting to see how the Biden administration navigates those concerns in light of the decision for the campaign to join TikTok.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big question that will continue to come back around. Great reporting, great writing. You can check out Haley's piece at Politico. Haley Fuchs, reporter at Politico.com. Haley, thanks for joining us. Great insight.
Thanks for having me.
Again, that's Haley Fuchs from Politico. And this is one that I think it's tough for President Biden to navigate. I don't know how you can call for the banning of a platform based on security issues, on their practices in terms of what it was doing to young people in America, the threat of the data going to an enemy in China. And then, because it's a political year and you really need the young political vote to be on their Super Bowl weekend launching your being on TikTok. I think that's complicated and complex. I think that's hard for President Biden to explain. I think it's hard for the American people to understand. And it further undermines trust. Again, not a political issue, it's a trust issue. And we got to get to the right response and the right process when it comes to that. We'll take a quick break. One final segment coming up next. Stick around.
The nationally ranked Cougars are on a roll.
Foose dives low, wait, up, and good! Drops it over the 10 for 2.
Tonight, it's BYU, UCF.
Khalifa, down the lane, still gets there, and lays it up and in! He was coast to coast like buttered toast.
Pregame is at 6 and tip-off at 7. Listen tonight. BYU, UCF on Utah's legacy home of Big 12 basketball and the BYU Cougars. KSL News Radio.
When was the last time you gave your carpet the love and attention it really deserves? Not only is your carpet one of the biggest investments in your home, but it's also the biggest air filter in your home. If your carpet hasn't been professionally cleaned, you're breathing in all sorts of nasty dirt, dander, and germs that keep recirculating again and again. Lucky for you, Zero Res is going to spread the love to you and your home with their February special. Don't think vacuuming or DIYing will suffice. Call the pros. Zero Res has over 7,400 Google reviews with a 4.8 rating. This month, it's $33 per room cleaned, plus a fourth room free with promo code 4FREE24. And don't forget about your air ducts. Take $50 off your air duct cleaning with promo code CLEAN-AIR. Call ZeroRes, 866-ZERO-RES, or online at ZeroRes.com and say you want the KSL special, ZeroRes. Spelled backwards or forwards, it's the right way to clean. This Friday from 10 to 1, the movie show comes to Sound Sleep Medical. But first, take the time to learn about a better night's rest. Sound Sleep Medical delivers oral appliance therapy that treats sleep apnea without the use of CPAP machines. They're professionally fit, warranted, and covered by most major medical insurance. In the days of a poor night's sleep, Sound Sleep Medical will help. Call Sound Sleep Medical at 801-716-8672 for details. Sound Sleep Medical.
So I'm Kate. This is my 4th year with Mountain Heights Academy. They're very helpful because you get that one-on-one interaction with your teachers. And it's live too, so they're talking to you and you're talking to them. If you have a question, even outside of their office hours, they'll be like, "What's up? I want to help you as much as possible," so that you can be successful and get the grades that you deserve.
Mountain Heights Academy is an online public school for grades 7 through 12. Visit our website to learn how it can work for you.
The Utah Department of Health and Human Services wants to make sure people in Utah can live safe and healthy lives. To do that, they need to understand which services people can access in their communities and what barriers they face to accessing services where they live. For this survey, they want to hear from people in Utah, specifically people older than 60, adults with disabilities of any kind, or caregivers and service providers of older people or adults with a disability. The results will be sent to the Division of Aging and Adult Services so they can better meet the needs of people across the state of Utah. Take this survey at utahcommunitysurvey.com or by calling 800-293-1538, extension 1610. All information will remain anonymous. Again, that's utahcommunitysurvey.com or 800-293-1538, extension 1610. 800-293-1538, extension 1610.
With your choice of select sandwich, nugs, fries, and a drink, Wendy's $5 Biggie Bag is your go-to. Your nugget wingman. Your hot and crispy fry co-pilot.
Just like us. We're like the bag boys.
What?
Bag boys, bag boys. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when we bring your food?
For a deal you can count on, bet on Biggie and choose wisely. Choose Wendy's.
Bag boys, bag boys.
U.S. price and participation may vary. Includes choice of JVC or crispy chicken sandwich with 4-piece nugs, junior fry, and small soft drink. Third-party delivery pricing may be higher.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. But not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Bish's is skipping this year's big RV show for a big reason. It costs each dealer a fortune. And guess who gets stuck with the bill? Yep, you. So skip the big show expense and come to the Bish's Better Than Show pricing event for free admission, free parking, and better than show pricing on new and used RVs. Only at Bish's RV in Salt Lake and American Fork, February 12th through the 17th and President's Day. Better pricing's big, but better selection? That's huge. Instead of spending your money to see a handful of models hauled to the show, you're getting better than show pricing on our entire inventory of new and used RVs. You'll find pricing as low as $140 per month on approved credit, plus clearance pricing on all remaining new 2023s. You'll also make 0 payments until May on approved credit and get generous trade-in offers on your current RV. Start shopping now at skipthervshow.com. Better brands, bigger selection, lower than show pricing, and free admission? Why settle? Come to the Better Than Show pricing event at Bish's RV in Salt Lake and American Fork, February 12th through the 17th and President's Day. Bish's RV, where memories begin. Stock number 73504 and 76976. Based on 20% down, 8.99% APR for 180 months. Subject to prior sale. See dealer for details.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, some cities around the state have tried ranked choice voting in recent elections, but a bill in the legislature would get rid of it. Second, there are lots of custom license plates supporting Utah's colleges and other causes, but only a few supporting the Great Salt Lake. And third, President Biden says America can't quit now when it comes to support for Ukraine. Right now, 46 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as it always is. I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the show today, if you missed anything along the way today, best thing to do is to just go to kslnewsradio.com, go to the podcast page, or you can just go to kslpodcast.com, find Inside Sources, and you can go through segment by segment. You can look up based on our guests. If you want to go back and hear one of the riveting interviews from people who are really smart from all across the country and from right here in the state of Utah, and you can just dial right in to those podcasts. And it's a great way to really go back and digest and think through some of the things. And we threw a lot of information at you today. We started, of course, with the news of the day, which began very early this morning when the United States Senate voted and passed a spending package that would provide aid to Ukraine. That was the big chunk of it, about $61 billion, along with aid to Israel, also some aid for some humanitarian aid going into Gaza, and then also some aid package for Taiwan. That, of course, now goes over to the House side, and that is going to be where it gets very complicated and very interesting. We had our good friend James Wallner from R Street Institute join us to walk through the scenarios and what can actually happen. And I want to spend a minute as we round out the show just to tee it up for you so you know what to be watching for over the next 24 to 48 hours. So you don't get lost in any of the headlines. You don't get lost in any of the finger pointing and placing blame. Trust me, there's a lot to go around. But you can actually get back to what are the issues at stake, what does it mean, and how do I want those that represent me to actually vote. That's an important part of the process. So as James described it for us, there's a few things that the Speaker of the House can do. One of the things that the Speaker could do is just ignore it. And this is something that we usually see when the House passes a bill and carries it across to the other side of the Capitol, and then whoever the majority leader is in the Senate just puts it on the desk and never comes back to it. That happens a lot. In fact, former Utah Representative Rob Bishop said the Senate is where great legislation goes to die. And not wrong. So many bills from both Republicans and Democrats have been passed in the House, moved across to the Senate, and then just never noticed, acknowledged, or taken up. Now the shoe's on the other foot. This time the Senate has acted first and sent it across. So it is an option, although I think it's not a likely option given the dynamics and what's actually going on. I think the Speaker of the House will likely do a couple of things. Another scenario that he could follow would be to take that legislation and divide it up into pieces so that there could be a proper vote on each of the elements. And I actually think this is one worth looking at because there are people on both sides of the aisle who have questions and maybe some heartburn about the aid package going to Israel. So the Speaker could put just that portion of the bill on the floor and vote. Then he could put the Ukraine portion. That could be debated, amended, voted on. And then you could do the final package in terms of Taiwan. And the interesting thing is, if the Speaker went down that path, I think all three of those pieces would pass. And then it wouldn't have to go back to the Senate because it would, in essence, be the same bill just voted on 3 times just to get really specific. And it would be interesting to see the different coalitions that would form. For instance, on the Ukraine package, there would be a lot of Democrats that would jump on board, and that would pass, I think, pretty easily. When it comes to aid to Israel, I think you would have a lot of those on the political left who would bow out and vote against that, and you would have some on the right that would jump in and vote for it. So you could end up with 3 very interesting coalitions passing the bill. So that's an option. The Speaker could divide it up into 3 pieces, take those votes, and then that could move on to President Biden for signature. Now, one of the other elements that could happen, because, again, the Speaker of the House has a very narrow majority, and we're also keeping our eye, by the way, on the special election going on in New York in the midst of some pretty heavy snow there in New York to replace Representative Santos, who, of course, was expelled from the House of Representatives. So if the Democrats hold, they've had a slight lead in the polls going into today. That would make the majority even a smaller margin for error, and so that could change the dynamics as well. And the last thing that could actually happen is you could have this very interesting thing called a discharge petition. Now, a discharge petition is when you have a majority, so you have to have 218 representatives sign a petition to have a vote on a particular bill. And that way you don't have to wait for the Speaker of the House to decide if or when it would be brought to the floor for debate and for vote. So that could happen. There is actually a discharge petition, kind of a shell, you could say, that's left over from last year that House Democrats have 213 signatures. They'd only need 5 more, and that would force this legislation from the Senate onto the House floor for debate and vote. Now, again, I think you would have some defectors out of those 213 current signatures. You'd have some Democrats who would definitely jump off of that, again, because of the Israel component to the funding. You'd probably have a real question in terms of would any Republicans be willing to cross over knowing that they were circumventing their own leader to get this bill on the floor for a vote. So to me, the really interesting question in all of this is what does it really tell us about where we are in our elected officials? Where are we in terms of those who are really willing to do the right thing based on where we are and what needs to be done? I saw in one article today there was a connection back to a 1959 novel, Advise and Consent. Alan Drury was the author of that. And he gave a pretty stirring and stunning warning in this, again, 1959 novel. And this is what he said. He said, "The fate of our country is not determined by the outcome of elections, but by the dedication and character of those we entrust with power." I think that's a very true statement, and doesn't matter your political persuasion or where you fall on the political spectrum, that is where the fate of the country falls. It's not just on who wins an election, which party has control of the House or the Senate. That's not where it is.